program are those of the speakers and the host, and do not necessarily reflect those of Yoakley Scott Corporation and your sports network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? But can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? But can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look in my soul. I've been afraid I would follow the road. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
Hello there. Welcome to Running Point on May 4th. For all you Star Wars fans out there, if you celebrate today, I know it's a great day to be a Star Wars fan. If you're not, well, sorry, we're going to have a lot of Star Wars references today. Master Jedi Richie Giuliano joining me in the sidecar today. Ty Bartel's enjoying the Commanders game. Don't know if he's enjoying it. You're looking out, it's cold and gloomy.
Yeah.
But he's down there in Cleveland for that. So, Richie, you're going to be my right-hand man. I thank you so much for stepping in. And also, we're going to have Anthony Romo pop in for a little bit, too, to talk a little local sports. And, guys, you have your fingerprints on YSU athletics. And since there were no results to talk about from last night, I want to dive in a little bit to start with YSU baseball, of course, that we cover, and YSU softball. And Richie, I know right now the baseball team is on a little bit of a struggle bus, but what have been some things that you think they've been doing that make you confident that despite the struggles right now, they're still going to be able to team that can come out of it and finish the season on a high note?
Yeah, I think what helps right now, Anthony, is they're getting some guys back that they haven't had all season long. I mean, when you look at Don Bucko, a guy that hasn't played much, he's starting to hit in the 3 spot every day. He's playing in right field. He feels a lot better. He had that groin injury towards the middle half of the season. He missed a stretch of about 8 or 9 games, but he's been back in the lineup now, has a hit in 6 out of his last 8. So he's really starting to come along. Steve DeSanio still smoking the baseball. He's staying red hot in the months of April and May. He's hitting over 300 in these 2 months combined. You also got guys at the top of the order that are swinging it well. So, I mean, the lineup right now isn't the issue for YSU. They've been hitting around a little bit the last couple of weekends, but I think we all know how good Wright State is. They're the best offensive team in the league. And, you know, outside of Friday where Youngstown State was up 3-1 in the 7th inning, possibly had a chance to win that game. Unfortunately, some things didn't go their way, and Wright State came back to win it. But the 2 on Saturday and Sunday weren't the prettiest. So they're trying to bounce back, looking for some revenge this weekend. Anthony and I will have the call. We'll have it on Friday and Saturday, hopefully, pending this weather. I mean, it's not looking great. I mean, it's 60 and 80% chance of rain, but hopefully we'll be able to get it off. Head coach Dan Bertolini, the biggest optimistic I know in the Youngstown area, so he'll try and get games off.
You have to be with the April we had, but the one thing about YSU is they don't have to dodge rain as much as we do in high school, because if it's raining in the morning, you know, that field can take it. They'll be fine. Yeah. As long as it's not raining during the game, they're okay. So they haven't been dodging as much weather, but I'm sure there have been some strains from the month of April and Mother Nature's wrath that we saw in the month of April. Ty, I almost called you Ty. I'm so used to that. Richie, coming into this season with YSU baseball, I think everyone kind of expected their pitching to be their strength, and maybe their lineup would give them the issues. And pleasant surprises throughout this lineup, people hitting really well. Pitching, like you said, that's been their bugaboo when they have been struggling. What do you think the dichotomy is, and does that make you even more confident that they have good pitchers? They're going to figure it out.
Yeah, they'll figure it out. I mean, Matt Brodsky has been absolutely phenomenal this entire season. He's top 2 in ERA. He leads the league in strikeouts, leads the league in innings pitched. So he's definitely one of the best pitchers in the league. And when you look at it from a tournament perspective, say you get in the top 5 or top 6, you have to win that first game or else you're going home. And when you throw a guy like Matt Brodsky, you're able to win that first game. I mean, you're facing the opposition who probably isn't going to have a guy that's as good as Brodsky is. So, you win that first game, but, like you kind of mentioned, the pitching staff after him has kind of struggled a little bit. But, I mean, you got John Snyder, who's been hurt the last 2 weekends, so he hasn't been in the starting rotation. Chad Coles is a guy who pitched really, really well against Oakland and Milwaukee. He had career highs in both of those games with 9 strikeouts. He even had 9 strikeouts against Wright State. They just had a few big hits that they put over the wall and, kind of broke that game wide open. So, I mean, when you look at this pitching staff and you look at the stat column, yeah, the ERAs are high, a lot of walk to inning ratios. But, I mean, there's some guys that are pitching really well around this time of the year, which is big.
Romo, let's bring you in the conversation. What are your takes on YSU pitching and what they can do to kind of right the ship a little bit?
Yeah, I think definitely a lot of what Richie said is very valuable. And this is a team last year that they had such an experienced pitching staff. That's really what helped them to the magical season that they had last year. Now, a couple of those guys have moved on. And then this year, some guys are going to have to come in and pick up that slack, like Lane Rhodes from Salem, Brandon Mikas from South Range, a lot of local guys on the pitching staff for Youngstown State. But I think this year, coming into it, the Penguins knew that they were going to have to make a little bit of growth on the pitching staff. And I think there's still a lot of baseball to be played. There's still a good amount of conference games to be played if this staff can hit their stride and if the bats can really wake up as this weather starts to warm up here in Northeast Ohio. I think that's one of the toughest things always every year for especially Youngstown State is until you get into this part of the season, early May, when you're playing in 30, 40, 50-degree weather when you're at home for a lot of the time. So I think that hopefully as this weather will begin to warm up, our bats will start to warm up and this pitching staff can really start to step it up here.
No one remembers how hard it is to pitch in cold weather too. You got to have that firm grip on that ball and your fingers aren't working in the freezing cold.
And your arm's not as warm as it wants to be.
Maybe the spin rate isn't exactly what it needs to be and it doesn't break as much as you want it to. And then breaking ball doesn't break. It's going to go a long way, right? I mean, that's the old saying. Romo, you've also had chance and Richie too to do a lot of high school this year and high school baseball. No results last night because of the weather, of course. We had thunderstorms in the area. But what have been some of your biggest surprises this year? I know we've seen one team stay at 1 in the power rankings throughout the season, but 2 through 10 has been so fluctuant. What have been some of your takeaways from this season on baseball, softball realm?
I mean, I'll talk about Columbiana first. I mean, that's a team that kind of took this area by storm. They started off the season 9-0, so that was a big surprise for me personally. But, talking to Chase Franken, who's a former Columbiana Clipper, he kind of knew that was coming up the ranks. They have some really good pitchers that were a younger classman when he was a senior back in 2019. So he knew this squad was going to be really good. And they came out, took the Valley by storm. So they're definitely one of the best teams in the area that kind of nobody saw coming. Outside of Columbiana, I think Fitch is really good. I mean, obviously, Canfield is going to be your number 1 pick. They're loaded. But Fitch is really good this year. Jake Coral and Joe Roth on the mound. Some guys who are throwing some complete games with ridiculous number of strikeouts. Their offense is really starting to come along. Excuse me. As you saw DJ's call with Brandon Popio hitting one over the wall. I know Roth hit one over straightaway center field the other day. So this is a team that has a good lineup and a good pitching staff. And, they could wreak havoc with a couple of teams, and we'll see that tonight.
Jake Coral just committed to John Carroll, so congratulations to him on continuing his baseball career. Romo, I know the other day, me and you were talking about the Hubbard baseball team and what a pleasant surprise they've been. Such a young team, lost a lot to graduation last year, but here they are, a young team that maybe a lot of people didn't believe in. Starting to believe in them a little bit. They're in the power rankings for the first time this year. What can you talk about this Hubbard baseball team and what has made them so special?
Yeah, this topic kind of fell right into my lap over here. Yeah, Hubbard, I mean, it's definitely been a surprising year for this team. And like you said, like I told you a couple of days ago, they're such a young team. They're led by shortstop Andrew Cayley, who's starting to get some college looks his way. He's really stepped it up this season. He's been a magnet in the field. Very few errors from him. He can stop anything within the entire infield. And then just up and down the order, they have so many guys that can hit the ball so well. You have Ian Wuklich on the mound as well. He's a great pitcher. He's a 4-year pitcher for Hubbard, started playing with us his freshman year. You have Alex Yoder, who stepped up, has made a lot of timely hits in big-time scenarios this season for the Eagles. Keegan Bala, he's a great hitter for the Eagles, plays a lot of summer ball down at Scene Park. He's really starting to step it up this year. I think it's very cool just as from my standpoint as a Hubbard alumni, because a lot of these guys that are stepping up now and playing in these big time scenarios were freshmen when I was a senior. And it's just crazy how everything comes around. A lot of these juniors as well, stepping up in big time scenarios that like you remember watching them when you go down and watch the Little League games, like when you're older, because at one time we were in that spot, and then you go back and you watch these kids, and now they're at the high school level. Hubbard dropped a heartbreaker to Lakeview yesterday. It was a very close game, but I think that NE8's wide open. Like we were talking about our rankings, Hubbard took down South Range last week, who was number 4 in our rankings, beat the Raiders 2-0 out at Hubbard. It was a great pitching matchup between Billy Skripak for South Range and Ian Wuklich for Hubbard.
Especially impressive since it was broken up. They started it and they had to restart.
Yeah.
So Hubbard was able to keep that momentum on the mound after, I think, a week between starts and finishes.
Yeah, that's happened a couple times this year for the Eagles, where they've had
Right.
they've had like week-long droughts of games because they just are unable to get games in. And I think that just with so many teams around the Valley, that's so tough. And I think that is we do benefit from that here in the Valley, having a ballpark like Scene Park that has 3 fields. And when some teams are unable to get on, if there's an open game, they can kind of slide in at Scene Park. But I'm sure those guys are exhausted, those groundskeepers there, because, I mean, they've been working day and night every day. I mean, we talk about Steve Leslie here at YSN, one of the big guys here. Richie and I were talking to him the one day. Of course, it was raining there. Our game had just gotten called. But you got to give it up to those guys, all the grounds crew there. I mean, they are just nonstop working.
And then the Hubbard softball team also in the same situation where they're still waiting to complete a game against South Range where they have a 2-run lead. So we'll see how that goes. That could pay dividends in the NE8 right now. It's still topsy-turvy. South Range has a 1-game lead, but they still have games with Poland, and they have to finish that game with Hubbard that they have a deficit in. So things still yet to be determined in both baseball and softball. We're going to have Gavin Wilms on in at 12:15 of Salem Baseball. And that's a team came in with a lot of expectations, right? And they started the season 1-3.
Yeah.
And, we talked to Coach DeBar, and he said, man, this team just has to find an identity. Well, they found it because they're on a heck of a win streak. I mean, no one expected Salem to stay struggling for long, right?
No, I mean, when you look at Salem, of course you lose Lane Rhodes, who was their ace last year, but you still have his brother in the Virginia Tech commit, Carson. Right. I mean, Gavin Wilms, who's going to come on, has stepped up in a big way. He's been really pitching his best baseball as of late. And this team, after losing the 2 to Marlington, I think that kind of woke them up a little bit, because those are 2 big games that you're going to look at in the later stretch of May and say, man, we're not going to win the EBC because of those 2 games. And, I know the temperatures weren't the best. It was absolutely freezing that day. And actually that week they played them Tuesday and Thursday. So it was a tough way to go. But, I mean, Marlington played really well that week. And, they got the best of Salem, and just like that, they're down 2 games in the EBC to your rivals. So, I mean, they're going to have to come back and find a way to, scratch and claw, hope Marlington will lose a couple. But overall, yeah, this Salem Quakers team has been really, really good as of late.
We know the EBC is important. We know beating these rivals are important. But at the end of the day, I think if we ask Coach DeBar and that team, if you had to sacrifice the EBC to learn some lessons about yourself and go further in the tournament, they'd take it in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
They take a state tournament trophy over the league trophy any day.
Well, I mean, look at last year. They lost to Canfield 10-0 in the first game of the season. Right. I mean, they got mercy rolled in 5 innings, and then you learn that lesson along the way, and you go through the path and you play some tough teams and you take your bumps and bruises, but that only helps you in the long run, because Canfield, a team that was 24-27-0, whatever the heck it was when they entered the regional semifinal. And then, they get in a tough situation. And Nate Shaw was talking about that yesterday with DJ in his interview, that, they haven't been in those tough situations at all throughout that season, because outside of the Solon game where they were able to come back in the 7th inning and win, they didn't face too much adversity. So I think that's big for Salem, that they were able to face that adversity early and often in the season, and that only helps you in the long run.
Why don't you guys answer this question from Chris Sigler, and then we'll get to Gavin Wilms, who's in the green room. But he wants to know about the lacrosse and what that experience has been like getting to call lacrosse games this year.
All I got to say is thank goodness we were in a heated press box. Last Wednesday, I believe, we did Canfield against Mooney. It was the first 2 lacrosse games on the network. And I went out. The girls played first. I went down to do some interviews after the game, and I came back up and I couldn't feel my hands. That's how I was. I was coming up. I couldn't feel my hands. I was only down there for like 10 minutes. And then the boys' game ended, and it was like 10 degrees cooler. And that was terrible. But I mean,
Imagine playing in it.
What a ride it's been for Richie and I this last week. I've been able to cover a lot of girls lacrosse. Richie's been able to hop on for some games with me. And I mean, we've enjoyed it out at Canfield High School, Bob Dove Stadium. We have another big one tonight. If anyone wants to tune in, we have a double dose of Canfield athletics tonight on Ysn. Richie and I keep saying I should just move in with him because the amount of times I've had to drive from Hubbard to Canfield in this last week, but I enjoy it. I enjoy the 30-minute drive on the highway down to Canfield, but
roomies.
We were saying I might just stay in his basement.
Yeah, my basement's open.
We'll have Emily Wilson on at 12:45 to talk more about this Canfield girls lacrosse team. But first, we have Gavin Wilms, and he joins us from Salem Baseball. Gavin, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thanks for having me.
We were talking before you came on, just an overview of this season, and the start you guys got on wasn't the one that you wanted, but Coach DeBar kept saying the team just has to find an identity, and you did. You found your identity. Now you're on this big win streak. Talk about what it was like from your perspective to go through the start you did and then bounce back from it and now be on this big win streak.
It was hard, definitely hard, but I knew that if we just stay together as a team and work hard, we'll get past it. We're a good team. We just have to act like it.
And Gavin, I wanted to ask you one thing from last year. Lane Rhodes was, the main leader on the squad, the ace for your baseball team. You were able to pitch in that regional championship against Archbishop Hoban. So what kind of advice did Lane pass on to you from last year, and what have you really taken from him and carried into this season?
He just taught me to be myself, know that I'm better than I think I am, and go out there and act like it, attack hitters, and just be myself on the mound, be comfortable, be loose.
When you look at this season and the expectations that you guys had coming in, what were some goals that this team set at the beginning of the season that they wanted to really achieve this year?
We wanted to be better than we were last year. We wanted to win conference. With Marlington in there, it's definitely a hard thing to do. We want to make a really good run in the playoffs, go to state, obviously, like every other team.
Now, when you lose to Marlington earlier in the season, I mean, that's obviously a tough loss and in EBC play. The conditions weren't the best that week, but how do you kind of bounce back from that? And do you think that was a key to this big winning streak that you guys are on, knowing that you took the lumps and bruises early and, you fought through adversity and now you're back to your winning ways?
Yeah, I definitely think it was. I think it was a really big wake-up call for us that we can't just show up and think we're going to beat teams. We actually have to do it.
After the success of last year, how did you guys deal with outside pressures? Obviously, there's a lot of expectations on this team because of the success from last year. How did you guys deal with kind of those expectations from the outside and trying to not put too much pressure on yourselves to be a different team?
We just focused on ourselves, stayed within us, kept everything to ourselves, talked to each other about it, didn't really let it get too big of a thing, and just kept the main thing, which is winning baseball games.
And then you've been pitching really well as of late. I mean, kind of just talk about what has led to your success. I mean, you've been one of the staples in this pitching staff along with Carson Rhodes, who's committed to Virginia Tech. So what's kind of been working for you as of late?
Just being comfortable and throwing strikes, letting my defense play behind me. They're doing a really good job. Just letting them play, letting them be in the game, not trying to do too much up there.
And then just with the playoffs coming up soon here, just what have you been the happiest about with your individual performances so far this season? What are just some things that you still have to improve on with the playoffs coming up?
I've been really happy with how I've been throwing. I've been throwing a lot of strikes, keeping a lot of hitters off, or keeping a lot of batters off the bases. A big thing I need to improve on is, to me, I need to hit the ball a little bit better. Even though as a pitcher, I think I need to hit still.
We know that in pitching, routine is so important. So take us through your game day routine, especially when you're getting the start on the mound. And what kind of things you go through to prepare yourself to be mentally ready for game time?
Usually like to start stretching and warming up about an hour before first pitch. I'll roll out with a foam roller, stretch. Obviously I have to drink an energy drink in there. Do my bands, throw my plyo balls, then long toss, hop in the pen about 15 minutes before the game, and go out there and throw the first pitch.
Now I'm around the Ysu State baseball team. These guys love to drink their energy drinks before they go out. I mean, what are you drinking? You drinking Bangs? And, if so, what flavor?
I'm a variety guy. I like Bangs, Reigns, Monster. I like them all, but my favorite has to be Bang Star Blast. That's got to be my favorite.
Now, how do you feel when you go out there after drinking that? Do you think that actually affects you, or is that kind of just part of your routine now? I mean, does it actually give you a little boost?
Yeah, I think it makes me focus a little bit more, but I don't know. It's just a thing that I've done since I was a freshman. Lane actually had me doing that when I was a freshman, even though I didn't get to play because of COVID. But ever since then, I've just done it before every start because of him.
Man, this season, this April, we've had to deal with the weather has been so hit and miss, and you guys have had to stop and start or have a game scheduled, then have a game not scheduled. What's that been like to kind of go through this weather and have to kind of navigate the stop and starts of the season?
Oh, it's brutal. We want to play baseball so bad, and you think you're going to get a day or you get a streak of games, and then you look on the forecast and you're getting pounded by rain, and it's just not a good feeling because all you want to do is play baseball. You want to play 27 games. It's hard to do that in Ohio, but you just got to keep going at it.
Now you got an EBC loaded schedule coming up, obviously starting later with Louisville. Then you take on your rival in that kind of doubleheader back-to-back Tuesday and Wednesday, and then you finish off the season with Carrollton. So, I mean, how excited is this team to face your rival on back-to-back days, kind of like what you guys did last year, and go on their home turf and hopefully get a victory?
Oh, we're excited. We can't wait. We want to play conference baseball so bad. It feels like forever since we've played. Last week was basically non-conference filled, but we can't wait to play West Branch. Oh, it's always fun to play them boys in green.
We have a question from the comments section. Chris Sigler wants to know what the best mullet you've seen this year is, either on your team or on an opposing team.
I like mine probably the best, but I have to say Jackson Johnson on our team. He has a pretty sick one. Caden Burt used to have a really nice one, but he just let it all grow out now. He just has a flow.
You got to love that flow. Talk about your school life because you're a student athlete. What do you like to study? What are some of your favorite subjects? And what are some teachers in the Salem school that have impacted your journey?
I'm a big history guy. I like history. Not very many people like it, but I do. I think it's really easy. DeBar is a big teacher that I like. I haven't had him in a while, but he's always somebody I can go to no matter what. I'm trying to think of what other teachers I hang around a lot. Our home ec teacher, Miss Zacharias, I like to cook stuff, so I'm always in there. And those are really the only two teachers that I have right now that I hang around. Our basketball coach, Coach Andres, I'm always in there with him.
What's the best thing you've cooked in home ec?
Ooh, I don't know. Yesterday we made some protein balls. Those were pretty good with like peanut butter and coconut and stuff. Those were pretty good.
Now, when we're on the school topic here, any future plans for you? I mean, baseball-wise, anything you're looking at to stay in the education department? Any future college plans for you yet?
I want to play baseball in college. I'm going to go to college and study business management. And if I get to play baseball, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Obviously, you want to, and in the recruiting process, it's different for everybody. What kind of things have you been doing to kind of try to get yourself out there a little bit, try to get coaches' attention, and try to make yourself available for college coaches?
I've been lucky enough. I have I have a couple coaches that are really good at contacting people, and they do a lot of it for me, but just keeping everything open, not jumping to anybody too early, like just letting options come to me. That's a big thing that I've been doing.
Now, do you feel any pressure when you go out there? I mean, as an uncommitted senior in high school, do you ever feel any pressure like, man, I got to throw well this game? I mean, I got to get my ERA down low, my numbers, and strike out to walk ratio high. I mean, do you feel any pressure when you go out there? Is it just kind of, be myself, let's go out there and, throw a good game?
No, I don't really feel any pressure. Of course, I want to throw a good game and get people to look at me, but that's one of the good things about being uncommitted. You don't have to keep with something. Like, I don't have to try and impress a Division I staff that I've already committed to. I don't have to do that, but obviously I want to go out there and get people to look at me and stuff like that, but I don't feel a whole lot of pressure at all.
Let's talk a little bit more about Coach DeBar. What's the biggest lesson he's taught you throughout your baseball career?
Me and him, our biggest motto is turn the page. Just like, if it doesn't matter if it's good or bad, just worry about the next thing.
And then, Gavin, I wanted to step in real quick. Just talk about, you're also a football player at Salem, and we know Friday Night Lights, how big the crowds can get. You guys played in a lot of big games this season. And then going back to last year as well, we saw how big the student sections got for some of your playoff games at Salem. Just talk about how much you guys thrive off of the crowd atmospheres at some of your sporting events.
Oh, I love it. When it's loud, it's the best. Like, even though you can't hear anything that's going on, it's 10 times better, because the opposing team, sometimes they get a little scared or something like that, and I just think it's awesome, especially our band. I love our band.
And then with that as well, just what's the best crowd you've played in front of during your entire athletic career?
Oh, it's a really close tie in between the West Branch football game last year and the Hoban game last year, because that game got chippy quick.
Before we let you go, I want to give you the chance to shout out your support system, the people that are always there for you, and the people that you probably wouldn't be where you are right now without.
Family, friends, grandparents always coming. Lane Rhodes, always talking to him before starts. My coaches, obviously. I have a lot of people behind me, and that's definitely a good thing.
All right, Gavin, we're behind you too. We love covering you. Thank you so much for the time. We look forward to your continued success, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
Thank you for having me.
Gavin Wilms, one of the stars of that Salem baseball team that has been playing so well of late. They're on a big winning streak, and they'll continue to try to cap on wins as we head to tournament time. A baseball tournament draw not too far away. Sunday, here we go. We'll know the brackets on Sunday, and then the last week of the regular season is next week in baseball, and it's going to be mayhem, as they like to say in baseball postseason.
One comment I got real quick before, we touch on the playoff bracket. I understand, like, the committee needs to get the playoff bracket in so they know where teams are going. They need to set up locations, and, the staff needs to get together to cover all these games. But, if you're a team like Salem that plays West Branch, who's your division rival, and sometimes both of those teams are usually either undefeated or have 1 or 2 losses by the end of the year, do you start to see some teams maybe move up their best teams earlier in the schedule so they can get those points to get seated higher? Because when you look at it, when the bracket's already, put in stone, what does it matter if you win the last 3 or 4 games of the season? Is that going to be a tactic that teams use? I know you always want to play your rival in the last weekend of the season. I know that's tradition, but when you look at it from a coach's perspective, you don't get the points.
Yeah, Richie, if high school baseball had an RPI, I'd be right on with you. But like, a lot of these coaches don't look deep into who you're playing, right? Especially out of the area. You look at Salem's record. Okay, they were in the tournament last year, especially if you're in the district. Like, let's say, throwing out a name like West Geauga, per se. West Geauga is probably going to look at Salem's record, maybe look at a couple of teams that they know they played common opponents or something like that. But outside of that, like, these coaches don't have time to dig into how good West Branch is this year, how good Marlington is this year, and let's decide where to seed Salem, because they're just going to, like, kind of go, okay, I know a lot about Salem 3. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think these coaches are diving deep into strength of schedule, which is a shame because there are a lot of schools that get underseeded because they don't have a great record, but they play really good teams. And then all of a sudden they're sitting in a 10 seed and the 2 seed has to play them like in the first round. And then you see a really good game that should be in a district championship. But I don't think that's the biggest worry when you talk about coach voting tournaments. Now in the football side of things, absolutely, because you need those points. But then in football, they're not calculated until the end of the season, so you don't have to worry about that anyway.
And that's the biggest risk you take if you're a team like JFK. I mean, you look at their schedule coming into this season. They're a Division IV team. They played Ursuline twice. They played Hoban. But, I mean, when you're a defending state champ, obviously you want to play some higher teams like that. But I mean, that just goes for any team that really wants to beef up their schedule and play a lot of good teams so they're ready for playoff time. It's very hit or miss. But I got to say, playoff time in baseball season is in softball in the spring. It's kind of underrated here in the area, I got to say. I feel like it's one of the best times of the year and it goes up there with any of the playoffs for the other sports because what's so unique about the baseball and softball playoffs is I remember like when I was in high school, so Hubbard kind of ends early, like the second or third week of May. You always want to still be in the playoffs when the school year ends because there's just a unique feeling about coming back to the school when the school year's over just to go to practice or something. So I think that having that factor with school coming to an end, weather's starting to heat up. A lot of people don't have much to do, so they come out to your games. I just remember my junior year. I know Richie was there for this too. It was at Scene Park, so a lot of things happened in the playoffs my junior year. A bunch of us still won out in the district finals. Canfield versus Poland battle of 224 down at Scene 1. It was packed. Yeah. I mean, both the stands were full. There were people on the fences all the way around. There's just nothing like high school baseball here in the Valley.
Yeah, and especially like baseball is a sport that's probably mostly built for series, but in high school it's one game, right? Like who's going to have their best in that one game and you're one and done, which is crazy for a sport that's as fickle as baseball and softball. But like we saw this say with Hubbard, since you're on last year, Hubbard came so close to beating Marlington out of that district and Marlington came in favorites. Like everyone said, okay, Marlington's going to win this district hands down. They're the best team, but they almost lost to Lakeview and they almost lost to Hubbard.
Richie and I were just talking about that yesterday. I was looking at the bracket yesterday. Hubbard and Marlington are in that same bracket. They're in the Hubbard bracket. Marlington's the 1 seed. Hubbard's the 4 seed. So that'll be real interesting. And I was just thinking about that game yesterday. I was talking to our AD about it the other day as well. Man, that was an exciting game. Haley Croyle for Hubbard hit this big home run in the 6th inning. We all thought it was over. And then Marlington, though, you got to give them credit. Coming in, they're technically the home team, but they're really deep in away territory since Hubbard was hosting the district. Man, they came in the bottom of the 6th, the bottom of the 7th, and they really stepped it up. I mean, they deserved that district championship last year.
2 games in a row where they looked dead in the water, right? And they made late rallies that just propelled them to a district championship. So that takes a lot of guts. Takes a lot of guts, but it was fun. It was a fun district. Hopefully this year our YSN teams can be the ones that propel through.
You're telling me.
Hosted by Hubbard again, and you brought up Haley Croyle, Division I pitcher. She has come into her own her senior year. I think she kind of felt this was her last go around in Hubbard, and I think she's even better this year than she was last year, which should scare everybody.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people around Hubbard, around that school district, knew that this year was going to be one of those years for this team because you look at Haley Croyle, Grace Narcom, Jillian Reeser. I mean, all around Alexis Najasak. A lot of these players played as freshmen and sophomores, and they started their whole entire freshman seasons on the varsity level. So we kind of knew it seems like every couple of years, Hubbard kind of has that team that can really do something. And this year now we have back-to-back. I remember my sophomore year, Hubbard was like 23-2 or something in the regular season. Our softball team was so good. We had Addie Jarvis, who now pitches at Illinois.
Yep.
They were stacked with good players. And then this roster again, I mean, I think this team goes up with that team all across the board. You have an elite pitcher like Haley Croyle. You have a bunch of batters in the order that can really hit the ball, and that team's really going to be dangerous come tournament time.
What I like about them is they have depth in the circle. Like Phoebe Resnack can come in and give you really solid innings. You don't have to ride Haley Croyle every game until the state championship if they make it that far.
And talk about head coach Bill Amaro. What a better way to step into a program. Of course, Coach Amaro led Boardman to 3 state championship games back in the early 2000s.
He knows what he's doing. He knows how to get there. He's already got that state championship ring. He knows how to win those.
He's just trying to stack on now.
Yeah. Richie, when you look at some of the baseball teams that might be underlooked, what teams do you kind of see making a big run as we get ready to seed teams this weekend?
Well, it's crazy. I mean, Gavin talked about Marlington. Not many people are talking about Marlington, but they're one of the top teams in the state right now. I mean, after beating Salem earlier in the season, I mean, like I mentioned,
They beat Fitch too.
they beat Fitch. I mean, a good team that nobody really talks about. I mean, you don't hear much about Marlington. You always hear about the Canfields and the Austin Towns because they're bigger schools, and you get that. But Marlington right now, I think, is top 5 in the state in their division. So I mean, they're going to be a team to be reckoned with when it comes to postseason play. So that's definitely a front runner for this bracket this year. No doubt.
They have this family down there named Evanich. Don't know if you've heard of them.
Yeah,
they're pretty good at what they do on the softball, baseball, basketball. It doesn't matter. Volleyball, football. I don't know if the boy's on the football team, but if he is, I'm sure he's good at it. Oh man. So Marlington's going to be something to contend with on both sides. I think West Branch baseball, they were kind of like Salem. They started off kind of rocky, went on a big win streak, had a tough week last week against some really good non-conference teams, but I think they're starting to find a groove. Bo Allasauce on the mound, really, really strong pitcher that a lot of people didn't know about because he's a young gun. It'll be interesting to see Salem go up against them and how they stack up with each other.
Yeah, I mean, that's always fun. I mean, that's one of the best rivalries in this area in the EBC and West Branch and Salem. I mean, it doesn't matter what they're playing, softball, baseball, basketball, football, it could be any sport. It's always going to be very tense. I know last year I was able to call the one Salem and West Branch game when Lane Rhodes was on the mound, and it got pretty chippy. I'm not going to lie. It could get chippy, so that's always fun. I mean, you always throw the records out the window for that game. I know West Branch has a big one against Marlington. I believe that's tonight at 5 o'clock. So
it was supposed to be last night.
Yeah.
I just want to step in real quick and talk about a team that's kind of been under the radar and we haven't really talked about much here on the network during baseball season, but they're very big on the network in other sports, and that's Springfield. Baseball team creeping into the top 10 this week. You have a lot of guys on this baseball team that are stars in other sports. You have Alex Rothwell, Shondell Gardner, Aaron Groner, AJ Stallsmith. The list goes on. Colton Ruark, who, I mean, he got to take a good amount of snaps this year at the quarterback position for Springfield because they were just blowing teams out left and right. But this Springfield baseball team, they're always a good program, quality program. They're always there come late May, late in the district playoffs. I think that this team is one that we should watch out for as the season goes on.
What will always make Springfield dangerous is they have kids that know how to win, period.
Yeah.
Like they just know how to make game-winning plays. They know how to
college
stay
level.
composed.
My bad. I didn't mean to cut
You're
you off.
good. You're
At
good.
the college level, we always talk about culture at Youngstown State. I mean, across all sports, Coach Bertolini talks about building culture. Coach Calhoun on the men's basketball side always talks about building culture within his program, and I think it's really starting to pay off these last couple of years. Springfield, talk about a school that has built winning culture in so many sports. Like you said, these kids just know how to win.
I'll add Ursuline too. Ursuline's another team to look out for. I know the record. I think it's 10-6, so it's not the best, but they still have some guys that could do some damage. I mean, when you look at Luca Raschuti, the guy who played his Little League baseball with the Canfield organization, he moved on to Ursuline. I mean, he's a heck of a ball player, hitting over 400. And, of course, you got committed UCF and Brady Shannon. So, I mean, that's still a team that people aren't really looking out for right now. And I think that, they're gonna let some people know who they are in this past week. I mean, Bako, another guy, two-sport athlete who's really good on the basketball court. He's hitting close to 400 as well. So they've got some bats. I mean, it just depends on how their pitching staff is that day.
You guys want to dive into this question from DJ Oakley? What's one team you're rooting for or connect with this spring and as we go into tournament time? I mean, I know Ysn, we're rooting for everybody, but there's always those teams that you kind of connect with. You kind of like see yourself in a little bit. So are there any teams out there that you're like, they're kind of my sweethearts, as Ty likes to say about Waterloo in his mind?
I mean, I'll go first. I think I can identify with Canfield girls lacrosse at this point. I mean, I came on last week, started covering that team, and what a good team that is. I mean, boys lacrosse too. I think both of Canfield's lacrosse teams, I mean, great head coaches are leading the teams, great players on both sides. And I think that just going there this past week, being able to cover some of their games, it's been a lot of fun. And then I think another team I can just identify with, honestly, is kind of Canfield baseball, just with Richie, because we cover so many Canfield events. Richie's brother's on the Canfield baseball team. That's just a team that had so much hype coming into this season. I think they're really starting to hit their stride.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say YSU. I mean, Canfield, obviously. I mean, that's my alma mater. My brother's on the squad, but I mean, I got to go with YSU. I mean, being able to travel with these guys, I really do feel like I'm part of the team there at Youngstown State. So, I mean, that's kind of a team that I've connected with my past 4 years in college. I mean, being able to, stay in the hotels with these guys, build relationships one on one with them, play video games, go out to eat, whatever. I mean, I really do feel part of the team there. So, I mean, there's really something special about that when you can be a play-by-play guy on the radio for a particular team, be able to travel with them, have such great relationships with the coaches and, Dan Bertolini, Coach Pinnell, and Coach Davis, along with the newcomer and, Jake Marinelli, who just joined the staff as well. So, I'm really pulling for those guys. I know it's going to be a tough battle because Wright State's always one of the best teams in the league. And then you got a team like Oakland who's playing some really good baseball this year. But I really want to see us win a Horizon League title because I know how much it would mean to that program, to those guys, some fifth-year seniors that have been there since 2017, 2018 that haven't been able to win a title. So I really know how much that means to them and how much hard work they put into their craft. And I'd really just love to see them come away with a victory. And it'd be great for, the community. It'd be great for the university and overall the program because, they're battling every single year with recruits around the Northeastern Ohio area and, with Kent State, Akron, all the Cleveland State doesn't have a baseball team, but I mean, still battling with the educational part of things. So, I mean, it'd be big for them to come up with a victory.
One school that I find myself kind of sneakily smirking at rooting for this year on the baseball and softball side is Lakeview, especially on the baseball side. What a story, first year head coach. I don't think anyone expected much out of Lakeview this year on the baseball side of things. And they were running the show for a little bit. They got big wins in the middle of the season, beat Ursuline. I really love what the Bulldogs are doing on the baseball diamond and the softball field too. I mean, just doing things the right way and trying to build off that game last year where they almost beat Marlington and turn almost into doing it. Take that next step as a program. And I think both teams are kind of ones that I'm like, okay, I kind of hope they do something. I kind of hope they get rewarded for doing things the right way and kind of flying under the radar a little bit.
Now, are you doing that game tonight? South Range and Lakeview?
I'm doing South Range softball against Struthers tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, that Lakeview baseball program. I mean, that's a team that is coming off a year where they lost Nick DeMonica, who's now pitching in the MAC for Miami of Ohio. I mean, they also had Brendan Kilpatrick, who plays football for Youngstown State. They lost a lot of pieces from that team last year, but man, have they reloaded. Like you said, first-year head coach, another one of those teams that no one was really looking at come this spring. But that's always what's so unique about baseball is that you have a lot more feel-good stories, I'd say, compared to football and basketball around the valley, just baseball and softball are spring sports because before YSN, these schools weren't really getting any coverage coming into their season. So you don't really know anything about these kids. But then YSN comes along, we get to do these player profiles, we get to cover these teams throughout their seasons. And I think that's really big for the Valley with being able to really expose our kids here on the diamonds and in the circle. And I think as the years go on, as YSN continues to grow, baseball and softball can really take center stage here in the Valley.
Romo, maybe you can help me with the first name, but the Caruso kid from Lakeview has been just lighting up the world in their lineup too.
I know who you're talking about. I got to find it. I can't get it off the top of my head right now, but I know who you're talking about.
Like all these names watch together sometimes because you're writing stories on everybody, but I very much remember writing Caruso a lot every time I'm writing Lakeview baseball stories. He's just one of those guys under the radar coming out, and giving teams a lot of problems, and he might give South Range some problems tonight.
And yeah, man, that Lakeview team, this is a big game for them tonight, Lakeview and South Range. If Lakeview can come out and really take down South Range, they're sitting front seat to take this Northeast State Baseball Conference.
Because they just beat Hubbard, who already beat South Range, so it's not out of the realm of possibilities to say Lakeview has a chance to beat the Raiders.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that what makes them so good and so dangerous, especially when playoff time comes and the games start to get real pressure ridden, is they've won a lot of close games. They won a close game against Hubbard yesterday, another big game against South Range. I think that it all comes back to culture, and I think that they weren't the best team last year. I know they took down Hubbard in the playoffs, but if you can build that culture for years to come, these kids that come up in the program, they see these kids that can win in close scenarios. I think that's really great for any program.
And man, we see so much good culture in the YSN family around sports. I mean, you talk about football, you talked about Springfield and the winning culture they've built. Basketball, you have the West Branch girls and this winning culture that Coach DeShields has built. softball
Salem.
champion. You know, like how do you not? They've won 9 state championships, right? I mean, like
Unbelievable.
Cheryl Weaver has built and actually kept going. She made it a point to say she kept it going. It was already built when she got there. A great winning program down there. So we're blessed with a lot of great winning programs in the YSN family. And a winner in her own right, we're going to have Emily Wilson of Canfield Girls Lacrosse. And I know you two are pretty familiar with her because you've been calling games left and right. Let's talk to her. Future YSU Penguin, too. Emily, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, I'm going to start it off. Recently, you just had your 100th career goal. I mean, what a record night that was for you. Just talk about that moment. I mean, your teammates came out. You had balloons, you had flowers, you had a T-shirt, you had everything that you wanted for the 100th career goal. So just talk about that moment and what it was like for you.
Yeah, my teammates, everything, they made it so special for me. Like, I wasn't expecting any of it. And for the timeout in the middle of the game for my coach to put the shirt on me, all the balloons and flowers and signs, it was crazy.
You know, we see a lot of, 1,000-point scores and things that make teams stop the game for moments. But I never seen anyone kind of take it like you guys did. I mean, talk about the energy that came with scoring that 100th goal and what it was like to see your team just kind of swarm you and just, living up that moment with your teammates.
Like, after I scored, I had all these arms wrapped around me, and I wasn't expecting that. And then I was, like, dragged to the 50-yard line to see my coach, and then my whole family walked out on the field, and that was awesome.
Dragged is not an understatement either. I saw the replay. I mean, literally taken and dragged.
And I mean, what more special way than to do it on your senior night? It was such a special night. So many seniors got recognized on that team. Just talk about the culture of Canfield Girls Lacrosse right now. I mean, there's so many of you guys have come up through the ranks playing together. And I think that's really showing how good of a season you guys are having up to this date.
We're just one big family, and you can tell, like, the way we're playing this year is completely different than we've played in the past. We're playing like a family, and we're all playing together, which is great.
And I think that can really go back to last game as well. You guys had 8 different players that scored in that game. I mean, it was an offensive onslaught in the first half. You guys really did a good job of jumping on Boardman early. Mm-hmm. And then coming to tonight, you're playing a very good Stowe team at home. It's a very big game. They're undefeated coming into the game. You've only lost 1 game. Just, are there any nerves coming into that game, or is it just excitement?
Honestly, both. I'm pretty nervous because, they are undefeated and we have 1 loss. But at the same time, I'm excited because I'm thinking back to the way we played last year when we played them, which we were down a player in the last 8 minutes of the game, and we pulled out a win. So I'm hoping we can get the same results tonight.
It's nice to see a team from far away travel to you for a change. You guys have had to make a lot of road trips this season. Talk about what that's been like and traveling hour and a half away to play big teams. And I'm sure it builds team camaraderie, but it also has to be kind of fun to make those road trips worth it with wins.
Yeah, the week before spring break, we had 3 away games in a row, and they were all over an hour away, which was pretty exhausting. But on our bus rides, we all sit and listen to music and sing all together, so we have a lot of fun on our bus rides.
All right, so it's a bus ride karaoke. So what are the go-to karaoke songs for Canfield Girls Lacrosse?
Honestly, I'm the DJ, so I pretty much play what I want to listen to, but we play a lot of Lady Gaga and, Disney Channel songs.
Who's the best singer on the team?
Riley Kostelic, for sure.
It's a quick answer, too. You better prove it.
Yep.
Emily, when you look at the strength of schedule this year, you guys have played some really good teams, starting with Kenston, which you tied all the way back in March. I mean, you go down the schedule, Bay Village, some teams that have a lot of history in their lacrosse programs. For you guys kind of just starting up, it's a newer program at Canfield. Just talk about, how you guys were brought up into the system and, how this team really matured over the last couple of years now that you're in your senior season.
So my freshman season, a lot of teams did not want to play us because, they're the new team. They're not going to play as good as we thought, you were thinking. And then when we made it far enough in playoffs, our sophomore season, which was canceled, but we had so many different teams that wanted to play us. And so that carried on to junior year where we won a lot of our games. So this year, a lot of those tougher teams were wanting to play us.
And now you'll look across the world of lacrosse, and more teams around the area are starting to get teams and starting to build programs. as someone that has poured so much into the sport yourself, what's it mean to you to see the growth of the sport in the area and to know maybe in 5 or 10 years you'll look around and you'll see a lot, even more teams have lacrosse programs in Youngstown?
Honestly, it means a lot because now, like, it started here in Canfield, it started in Mooney or Cardinal Mooney, but it grew to Canfield, grew to Boardman, grew to Poland. And I'm excited to see that it's trying to grow to other schools like Austintown, Howland, and maybe like Struthers maybe in the future.
So, Emily, you're a Youngstown State commit, and of course, I'm sure you've been paying close attention to how good of a season the Penguins have had this year, going 2-7 last year in their first ever year at the program. Then they turn around this year, go 8-2 in conference play, win a share of the Mid-American Conference title. And I know Coach Walton was at the game on Monday on senior night, so she was there to see your special moment for that 100th goal. Just what makes you the most excited, I would say, to move on and play for Youngstown State next year?
The most exciting part is that I'm going to be staying at home, so my family's going to be able to come, and like to be the first local player to play at that school, it just means a lot.
And that's another team that, just like you guys, they have a lot of team chemistry, a lot of team bonding activities that go on during the offseason. Have you been able to meet any of those players yet? And if so, just what's it been like talking to them?
Well, when I went on my visit, I met a lot of the girls, and they were all just so nice to me and already adding me to their family, which meant a lot. And when we played Hoover on Saturday, Jordan was there, so I got to see her and talk to her after the game.
When now that we're on the topic, when you were doing the recruiting process and you were trying to make your decision, what kind of things made YSU the one that you kind of went with and the one that you wanted to keep as your new home?
Definitely that it was close to home, and that Coach Walton, Coach Clarkson, and Coach Taylor were making it like very like clear that I was going to be a big part of their team and a big part of their family, which was nice.
So now that you're going to Youngstown State, of course you're an athlete, but you're also going to be a student as well. So what are you looking forward to, and what are you going to study in college?
I'm going to be studying accounting, and I'm excited to be able to put my time into the classroom and on the field at YSU.
Talk about your pregame routine and some of the things that you like to do to get mentally prepared for a big game.
Got to take a nap before, And before games, I always have Allie braid my hair, and it has to be braided the same way every game. And then I have to wear my yellow headband.
Have to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now that's nice for us. I mean, when we're up in the booth, we know who you are. Because, you got the yellow headband on. So, just talk about where that came from. Is that something you've always done? And, does that separate you from your sister? Is that kind of why you do that?
Yeah, but, you can kind of tell us apart anyway because I'm like 6 inches taller than her. But my dad bought it for me when I was first starting out, and I've worn it ever since.
All right. The shade has been thrown with that statement. So let's talk about the dynamic of having her on the team and what it's kind of been like to share all these moments with your sister.
Oh, that's meant so much to me. And to know, like, we've grown the sport together. We've played everywhere together. We've traveled the country together playing. And just knowing that this is our last season together.
You get lost a lot.
Yeah.
And just talking about your sister, Allie, you, of course, have the accolades, but it just seems like she's so supportive across the way. And Coach Guerrero was even telling me after the game that she's so special to the team, too, because she doesn't score all the goals, but she assists on so many of them. Just talk about the bond between you two and just how special it's been for both of you to now be able to go play at the next level.
It means a lot that we're both going to be playing at the next level. And for Allie on the field, Allie is the best player on our field, and I know that. And it means so much to me that she is everywhere, getting all those interceptions, all the draw controls, ground balls, everything.
Lacrosse is a sport that's gaining traction, so there are a lot of people trying to get into it, casual fans. What do you think is the most common misconception that people have when they're trying to learn about lacrosse that you've had to answer or get annoyed with, like, oh, this question or this misconception? What do you want to kind of straighten out in the public's eyes about lacrosse?
I feel like a lot of people think that it's not an aggressive contact sport, which it's the complete opposite of that.
I mean, I think it was you that got hit by the lacrosse ball the other night, right on the shin or the thigh. So I mean, kind of talk about that. That can't feel good. I mean, once you get hit, you guys don't have as much padding as like the college level. So just talk about that. I mean, it is a contact sport, and it's going to sting when you get hit by a lacrosse ball.
Honestly, I wasn't really expecting that at all. And for that one hit, I'm like praising Carly because Carly does that every single day.
Yeah, just talking about Carly, just in goal. I mean, she's been almost automatic in the net for you guys this season. She's such a good goalkeeper, and I think that she really adds a great look to the team this season. Just talk about all around. I mean, from the attack to the midfield to the defense to the goalie, you guys are talented all around. Just talk about what it's like during practice. I'm sure the practices are real intense because so many players on the team are so good.
Yeah, practices, we run a lot at practice. And then when we go to run our plays, everyone's all over the field playing aggressive, and our practices are great.
And then going back to that Hoover game on Saturday, something that, of course, you guys didn't come out the way you wanted to, but we go towards the end of the fourth quarter, Hoover goes up and then they win that draw control. And I'm sure that had to be frustrating for you guys because they kind of held the ball for like 5-6 minutes down on your end. Is there anything that Coach Guerreri kind of does to prepare you guys for scenarios like that? Because you guys stayed composed, you didn't give up, you forced the ball out of the stick, and you ended up tying the game. Or is that just something that kind of happened? Is that something that you guys practice?
We practice scenarios like that at practice, but normally, we weren't expecting that one to happen.
While we're talking about Coach Guerreri, what do you think is the biggest lesson that she's taught you throughout your journey in Canfield lacrosse?
It's just play the way you play as a teammate, and you're playing in a family. Just keep your composure and play your game.
Now the playoffs are coming up. Of course, you got a good stretch coming up with Stowe tonight, and then you take on a team like Menor and Hudson to kind of polish off the skills before playoff time. But your senior season, a chance to make a state run. How excited are you, and how excited is your team to make this push towards the state championship?
I am extremely excited because of all the years I've played on the varsity team. I know that this year is the year that we can make it as far as we can. And I know as a team, we're all extremely excited for, even though it's our senior year. So it just makes it even better.
When you look at some of the things that you've done with this team, and I'm sure a lot of moments that you've had with this team, what are your favorite memories off the field with these girls that you've kind of been able to acquire?
The best memories are just when we're together. Like on Friday night, right before the Hoover game, the varsity team all went to Coach Guerreri's house and we had a nice bonfire. We were watching the Syracuse and Virginia game. And then just sleepovers, team bonding dinner. Whenever we got to dinner, that's fun, but everything together.
And of course, just like we were talking about earlier, coming into this big game against Stowe tonight, is there anything that you guys kind of do different coming into each game, or at the game of lacrosse, you guys kind of have the same game plan coming into to every game? Like, is there a lot of film you watch, or is it just kind of you just come in with your own game every time?
I mean, tonight especially, we watched film on the team we were playing. We watched Hoover versus Stowe, which that helped prepare us tonight. But normally we just go in with the same game plan, get the draw control, settle the offense, and then go.
All right, Emily, before we let you go, I want to give you the chance to shout out your support system, the people that are always there for you, and the people that, you probably wouldn't be where you are in your journey without.
I wouldn't be anywhere without my parents. They put the time and money in to let me travel the country to play lacrosse and give me the opportunities that I have. Big shout out to all three of my coaches, Coach Guerreri, Coach S, and Coach Ashlyn, for making me the player that I am. And then a huge thank you to Allie, because, wouldn't be here without her.
All right, Emily, thank you so much for the time. We love covering you guys. We'll be at the call tonight, and we look forward to continued success and talking to you again real soon.
All right, thank you, guys.
Emily Wilson, one of the stars of that Canfield girls lacrosse team that is, quite frankly, one of the best in the state. I mean, I don't think that's an understatement to say that this lacrosse team is one of the best in the state, and I think they're going to prove it come playoff time.
I think it'll be really big for the Valley, especially this spring. I mean, they're one of the best teams in the state, as you had said. Hopefully they can make a really big run, and I think that it'll be huge for the sport of lacrosse here in the Valley. I think we need to get a lot of teams, a lot of schools coming out to support this Canfield team and just learn the sport, because Richie and I, we've both done our fair share of announcing. Of course, I've done way more with Youngstown State, but he has a little bit of Ysu Lacrosse under his belt too. It's a hard sport to learn. I mean, I'll say that fair enough. Richie, I'm sure he can say the same thing. It's a hard sport to learn. So the more you get out, the more experience you gain learning the game, watching these teams play. It's a very exciting sport. Canfield's played in, goodness, sorry, I have an alarm going off there. Canfield's played some very close games.
What's going on?
But as I was saying, well, actually, speaking about lacrosse, I set an alarm because I had to help make a hype video for Youngstown State for their tournament game coming up this Thursday. But as I was going with that, I think it'll just be huge to get people to come out and watch this team play. They'd love the support. They need the support because it's a big game coming up tonight against an undefeated Stowe team.
All right, Romo, I know we got to let you go pretty soon, but before we do, since you're talking about, trying to learn the sport, what was the hardest thing to grasp about lacrosse when you were trying to learn it?
There are two things I'd say that were the hardest to kind of get under my belt. First things first is the fouls. It's a tough sport to grasp because a lot of the fouls that in lacrosse are very unique compared to other sports. I'm still learning it. I can see Richie smirking up there. We had the rules book up on my phone in the press box.
And I was giving it signals.
And we're like, after every foul, like, we know this is misconduct. I already forget what this one is. It's hard to learn all the fouls. We know this is offensive foul because that's a basketball term. But the fouls are definitely one of the hardest parts of the game to learn. Then I'd say probably the hardest part for me from my standpoint at the college level was adjusting to the pace of the game, because I remember how nervous I was my first game I ever did. So not many people know. It's kind of a fun fact about the Youngstown State Women's Lacrosse broadcast. So I was adopted as being the first play-by-play announcer for the team. The first game comes, I wake up the morning of the game, and I'm severely sick. I'm like, I can't even get out of bed sick. So like, I call our boss. I'm like, hey, I can't do it. So Richie on the spot has to end up doing the first ever YSU Women's Lacrosse game on ESPN Plus. Thank goodness. We had a color commentator, Tim McGeaney, whose daughter plays on the team. He's a natural with the sport. He was able to jump on and help out Richie for that. But going back to what I was saying is, you want to talk so fast because we're so used to doing sports like basketball and football where it's kind of like you never stop talking during the game. Lacrosse is a whole different animal. It's a college sport. There's 2 30-minute halves. So you kind of say everything you want to say early on, and then you're really stuck because there's not much to talk about because the game just progressively and slowly moves on. So I think the fouls and the pace of the play were the hardest things to really adapt to.
What about you, Richie? What was the hardest thing to kind of...
It's the rules, of course. I mean, because the rules are completely different than any other sport. I mean, like he said, you have the one charge call. I mean, which is obvious because you know what a charge is. Yeah, everything else is different because you got to give certain shooting space. There's misconduct. There's a plethora of different calls that they make, and sometimes it's hard from our angle to see what they're calling. It maybe on the far side of the field because we're set up on the very right side of the press box. So, I bring the binoculars every night. So we do try our best, to correctly get the calls. And then the PA guy does help us out. And there's been times where we messed up numbers on people that have scored. So, I mean, it hasn't happened like often, maybe once or twice, but it happens. But that's probably the most difficult thing really is numbers because there's so many players out there, and then rules.
You guys need to set up a broadcaster's cam when you do a game.
We were talking about that the other day.
We can see Richie with what?
I'll give him to him because he's doing the play-by-play. So.
Yeah, I think that if anyone's interested in announcing the sport of lacrosse, the biggest thing you have to do is bring binoculars. If you don't have them, you have to buy them, because I struggled a fair share Saturday by myself because couldn't find our binoculars here in the house. I didn't have Richie to help me because he was out at Wright State. When players score, and lacrosse is such a team sport, when players score, the celebration goes on as a team. So it's like soccer, you score, the whole team gets together.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a big dog pile on whoever scored. You can't see who it is.
Who scored?
So we have to relay on the PA announcer. And it's not like he has that much of a better view than we do. So he has to relay down to the field, whoever's at the sub table, to get it to him. So sometimes someone will score and we'll be sitting here for 20 seconds waiting for him to say it so we can relay it. So binoculars are definitely key. And I mean, we try our best. It's really hard, even for two guys. Richie's doing the camera. I'm trying to say what's going on. We're still trying to decipher all the fouls, but it's definitely fun. I mean, we have fun doing it. Not really much frustration sets in because we know it's a new sport to everyone. No one's going to be perfect their first couple of times going at it.
As someone who is visually impaired in every sport, you're preaching to a choir. I could use binoculars everywhere. So, man, you guys do a great job, though. I mean, it's been record breaking that we've been able to get lacrosse on YSN, and we're so proud that you guys were able to step up and do it, and to be able to tell stories like you said earlier about baseball, but to tell stories like Emily Wilson, to tell stories like Carly Dapolito, who's the highest ranked goalie in the state. So, we love the avenues to doing that, and you guys are a big reason why we're able to bring lacrosse on the YSN. So we're going to take a break. Romo, I know you have stuff to get to. We're going to have Scotty in the studio with me and Richie when we get back, and we'll have some fun with Mr. Mincher. But this is Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
New things happen all day. Some are good, some not so good. In today's complicated world, while you're busy working, playing, and living life, we're busy helping you make sense of the day's news. And there's only one place where it comes together with clarity, context, and accountability. It's 21 News at 6 with me, Madison Tromler, and Derek Steyer.
21 News at 6. It's what the day's news really means to you.
Welcome home to a home made homier with Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods. Inspiration starts at BairdBrothers.com and is turned into reality when high-quality hardwoods are delivered right to your home. Baird Brothers has the latest design trends, shiplap and skinny lap interior siding, antique oak rustic flooring, and, well, you'll find them all at BairdBrothers.com. Ordered easily, delivered conveniently, enjoyed comfortably. BairdBrothers.com.
At Greenwood Chevrolet, shop with confidence knowing we're ready to go the extra mile for you. With the largest selection of used vehicles in the Valley, backed by the Greenwood Advantage Warranty. Every one of our vehicles has undergone our own 126-point inspection, so it passes the most important inspection, yours. No other dealership has the extra inventory, gives you extra for your trade, and goes the extra mile for you. Only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
WRS Wealth Advisors, the area's premier wealth and retirement specialists. Located on South Avenue in Boardman.
Quality, customer service, and integrity. Those are the four words that have driven our success since 1957 at Joe Dickey Electric.
Joe Dickey Electric is one Mahoning Valley landmark business that stays current with the requirements of our customers. Family owned and managed, we are an electrical contractor and energy solutions provider. Every member of our team adds to his or her skill set through ongoing training. Residential, commercial, industrial, automotive, and more. We keep ahead of the needs of our customers with a fleet of more than 50 vehicles and 24/7 emergency service, so you're never left in the dark.
When looking for home design inspiration, don't just be inspired, be Baird inspired. Whether new or remodeling, Baird Brothers has the latest trends like shiplap to refresh your home. Go from inspiration to installation with our wide selection of in-stock American hardwoods. From the rustic charm of antique oak to the warmth of traditional cherry, Baird Brothers has what you need to make your home inspiring. Baird Brothers, our family's heritage, your family's home.
For a great vehicle and a great experience, come to Boardman Mitsubishi today. As always, our full lineup of Mitsubishi models comes with a standard 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. Boardman Mitsubishi, your hometown Mitsubishi dealer since 1999.
Coca's Pizza, always supporting our community and our local athletes. Stop in on game day or score big and have it delivered right to your door. Check out our daily specials at cocaspizza.com. That's Coca's Pizza, we serve it hot.
At Hubbard Chevrolet, Hubbard can help you get the financing you need regardless of your situation. I'm Tony Page, and I've helped thousands of customers in Northeast Ohio and Western Pennsylvania buy a vehicle. Visit HubbardChevy.com to get pre-approved. Remember, folks, Hubbard can help.
You're not waiting to see what the world has in store for you. It's more about what you have in store for the world. All you need is the opportunity. All you need are the resources of a large university and the advantages of a personalized academic setting where you can experience new worlds in the arts and sciences, business, and education and make them your own. We are where you shape your future. We are Youngstown State University and proud.
Welcome back to Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Anthony Hartwig alongside Scott Minter and Richie Giuliano, who's playing sidecar today as Ty Bartell enjoys a trip to Cleveland to watch the Guardians play. I believe the Padres are in town.
Yeah, they play the Padres. The doubleheader actually, so I think he's going to be able to watch both. I think you get two for the price of one, usually doubleheader.
So, is that only if you had tickets for yesterday's, though? Or can you do it?
I really don't. I don't know the logistics of the doubleheader, but, my buddy who's from John Carroll actually went to a doubleheader when the Guardians played, I think it was the White Sox on Sunday, like 2 weekends ago, and he got 2 for 1. So, I think you're able to get, both as long as you have the ticket.
Maybe Ty and his dad will be enjoying a double dose of Guardians Padres today as they're playing at 1:10, which is about right now. They should be having first pitch on the dot, and then they'll play the Padres again. Scotty?
Yeah, it's the matchup of the two guys who violated the COVID protocols, Mike Clevenger and Zach Gleasack, going off against each other.
It's also 2 former Cleveland Indians going back. Clevenger was a part of the organization, and he made some great runs with the program when they won a couple games in 2016, 2017. So, he was shipped to San Diego in that one deal. But, so that should be a pretty good matchup today. Clevenger, I believe he's making his first start since he played in Cleveland because he's been hurt forever.
That's ironic. Hey, you're gonna leave Cleveland, and the next start you're gonna make is gonna be in Cleveland, but it's not with Cleveland.
Yeah, it is just really eerie that it worked out like
eerie.
that.
He made a pun.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask you guys though, while we're on topic, I heard recently it's either going to be at the start of next season or the year after that every MLB team during the duration of the Major League Baseball season you're going to play every team now. I want your guys' thoughts on it because I got to admit, growing up, especially being a kid, watching baseball and loving it, my favorite sport to watch live in person, baseball. I kind of feel like it takes some of the uniqueness away from the game now that we're going to see every one of these teams. I kind of liked when I was little when, you only saw some teams if you met them in the World Series. And
how are they going to do that? Are they going to take away division games?
That's what I'm saying.
I think they are taking away division games. So what are your guys' thoughts on this whole thing? I don't know. I don't really like it, but I guess 162 games, it's not the worst thing in the world. But what's your takes on this?
It is, obviously there are those teams in the other league, I should say, that you play every year because they're rivals or whatever. I think that Cleveland plays usually Cincinnati every season.
Year, yeah.
Kansas City plays St. Louis every season. But then there's teams that you play once and you don't see them again for 4 or 5 years. I think the Royals played last year in PNC and they hadn't played there since 2011.
Yeah.
It's I guess it fixes that. But if you're a Royals fan like me in this area, hey, you get to go to a Pittsburgh game.
Yeah.
See the Royals every year. But Scotty's right. There's a little bit of a uniqueness that gets lost. And obviously you lose division games, which might make divisions, the scope of divisions a little bit more murky.
I think this is a great topic to bring up, Scotty, because I think this is a way for Major League Baseball to kind of grow their brand a little bit. I mean, like Anthony, like you just mentioned, you might not see a team for 4 or 5 years after you play them. So I think this is kind of a way to grow the game of baseball because when you look at a team, let's say like the Angels, right? You got 2 superstars on that team, Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. Now, if you play the Angels every single year, you're able to go in person and watch them every single year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you don't, you kind of lose focus of those 2 guys, right? I mean, who's following the Angels here in Cleveland when they play at 10 o'clock every night? You know, I mean, this year the Guardians did play the Angels in that series in Anaheim, and that was pretty cool to watch, but it was 10 o'clock at night. So, you know, there wasn't a big following for those games. So I think they're trying to grow their brand, make sure that everybody's seeing some of the superstars. I mean, when you look at what New York has this year, I mean, Gallo, Judge, Stanton, I think they want to promote those type of teams to other areas and grow their brand more so that they follow along with Major League Baseball. But it kind of does have that double-edged sword effect because you take away divisional games, which is the most important thing in Major League Baseball when you look at trying to get to the postseason. So there definitely is a negative side, but, you know, for baseball to grow its brand, I honestly would like this because it's kind of cool being able to play every single team, and you know, you get to watch different teams and all the different superstars that they bring to the table as well. So I would like that. It's just, you know, you can't fit all those games at 162 without, you know, leaving divisional play.
Forgive my ignorance because I don't watch the NBA very closely. Like, you know, do you hit every team during a season in the NBA season? Like, do you hit every team at least once in your?
I personally
do you know?
Major League Baseball more than anything. I mean, obviously football is 16 weeks, so that's
Yeah, and in football, even with the extended schedule, you don't hit everybody.
No.
You hit most teams, but there's still teams that you don't play.
I think I could be wrong on this. Don't take it as the Bible from me, but I'm pretty sure, almost certain that throughout the 82 game NBA regular season, you play every team at least once.
So Chris Sigler, bouncing back from helping the brand, he says it's a money grab, and it's just nothing to help the brand. It's all about the money trying to bounce back from that COVID year. So what do you think about that perspective? If this is this MLB trying to because they've never been the greatest marketing team in the world. So to give them the credit and say they're making a good marketing decision, I don't know.
I mean, it's definitely going to help attendance. There's no doubt about it because you're going to be playing every single team, and you know it's going to be fun to watch. I mean, especially when I don't know, for example, let's say San Diego is going to play New York at home. You know, that's going to be a great series, and I think it honestly will help with a lot of the TV aspect, kind of sales and the TV marketing. Because I mean, you're going to have
right, like MLB makes all its money almost on the TV deals, not the.
So I mean, you're going to have like ESPN coming in on a Wednesday night covering New York Yankees against San Diego and in San Diego, and people are going to watch that because that's going to be a great game. I mean, you're going to have Garrett Cole against, you know, whoever Yu Darvish might be throwing that night. So it's definitely going to help out, I think, the attendance of Major League Baseball and the TV aspect of it, but it does take away kind of the uniqueness of the sport, knowing that you're going to drop probably 15, 20 divisional games.
But then it does get kind of unique because if I'm right about the NBA, I don't know if I am. I don't know if they play every team in the season at least once. But in the NFL, you don't. And in the Quinn says you do. So the Quinn nods and says in the NBA you play every team at least once.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
All right, so you'll have it in basketball, baseball, but you won't have it in football, hockey. Do they play every team once? I don't think so.
I'm not a really.
I know. We're not hockey people,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
I don't think they play every team once. So it would be a little bit unique to see a league where every team gets hit at least once in the season. And the 2 leagues you see are the 2 longest leagues there are, with 82 games in basketball and 162 in baseball.
Well, I think that's why it helps out the sport because 162 games is a drooling season. And I mean, as much as we love to see the Guardians play Kansas City 15 times a year, do we really need that?
19, right? 19 division games. Do we need 19?
It's like, you know, sometimes when you get towards the later month of the season, it's like, man, we're playing Kansas City again. We just played Kansas City on Saturday. So I mean, I guess that will help out the game a lot because you play the same team over and over again every single year. Like it does help with rivalries. Like I know, Detroit was a big rival back in the day when they had their stacked team with a couple of division opponents, and like the White Sox are starting to build a rivalry up top with a bunch of teams in the Central. But, other than that, it does get kind of old playing, the Royals, and you're facing the same pitcher 3-4 times in a single year. It would be kind of unique and kind of cool to, face off against a Seattle or, I don't know, Florida or whatever, some team like that every year.
You're going to see less of Red Sox Yankees every year, though.
Yeah, that might be
probably the highest market game in baseball.
That might be the argument by those teams in the East, because even Toronto's getting good too. So, I mean, Toronto will be losing out on some money when you look at their probably sales when they play the Yankees and the Red Sox. So, I think that division's going to have the biggest outcry towards not doing this next year, because that's the division that makes all the money, if we're being honest. I mean, outside of, the Dodgers division as well, but, the Dodgers always dominate the division, but, the East is the best division in baseball, in my opinion, with
financially. Absolutely.
Yeah. 100% with 3 big markets in it. So, I mean, that division, of course, can be like, no, but everybody else is probably gonna be like, yeah, let's do this, because this is gonna make us more money from ESPN and, our regional networks. That's what it's all about. Let's be honest.
And even the Yankees, even though you could look at their payroll and say they've underachieved since the last time they won a World Series in 2009 or whenever it was, but they're still always in the conversation. And pretty much same with Boston. Like the Orioles and Blue Jays have had their rough patches, but a big reason why the Yankees and Red Sox is so big every year is that they always seem to be playing meaningful games. Like it's very rare that the Yankees or Red Sox, I mean, chances are highly unlikely they're going to be awful. So
there are a lot of years where like they're in the conversation because they have superstars, right? But then you look at it like, are they really contenders for a World Series? It's been shaky.
That's a whole different
which is weird because you have all those superstars. You should be contenders.
Yeah. But they really, I mean, you think about it, even the last time they won the World Series in 2009, I think they got shut out in game 1. They came back and won like 4 in a row. But sometimes I think, man, you give a team like the Guardians or even Kansas City. Now, I know with Kansas City, it's been more recently, but they've had a better eye on. They've done a better job developing talent. And once that talent gets to the majors, it flourishing. They have the World Series to show for it in 2015. But sometimes I think, man, you think about all these years, for about the last 10 years, the now Guardians have been in the playoffs conversation at the very least. If they had like half of the Yankees payroll, I mean, there's guys on the Yankees roster that make more money than what the Guardians' entire payroll is. So you think about that, and you're like, even if you gave the Guardians half of that, man, they could be really scary if they were able to keep a guy like a Lindor, or when even going back to the 90s when Jim Thome left, when Ramirez left. But we're probably never going to see like a cap when it comes to Major League Baseball. But the
Indians have gotten really close. Like they're right there.
Yeah.
And they've gotten closer to the Yankees in the last few years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's because they've developed their pitching staff. I mean, their pitching staff is phenomenal.
I know there are some Guardian fans right now that are saying, well, even if we had that money, we wouldn't spend it anyway.
And I think that's the difference, though. I mean, when you look at it, because the Guardians, they draft these guys at a young age, right? Or they get them from the Dominican or Puerto Rico, wherever they come from, and they develop these guys under their system. And a prime example is Jose Ramirez, a guy that was, brought out of the Dominican Republic when he was 18 years old. He had a chance to leave this year, and he didn't. He literally came out and said, I wanted to stay in Cleveland because this is a great organization. They brought me here to Major League Baseball, and I'm going to stick with the organization that brought me here and, that developed me and that treated me right the entire way. As for the Yankees, they're kind of like nobody even looks at their farm system, because outside of a backup catcher and a backup shortstop, who else is coming up from that system? They just trade for everybody and they buy everybody. So, they don't know how their pitchers operate. And I think that's the biggest problem. Yes, they have some of the most elite pitching coaches in all of Major League Baseball, but they haven't been with these guys and have seen their struggles and have seen what works for these guys. And that's why their pitching staff sometimes isn't the best.
Plus, I think too, Richie and Anthony, you could comment on this too, but people, I think they underrate this sometimes, but you just think of things sometimes as far as you think about it as a on the field move. This is going to work out great. But what people forget sometimes is that in New York, everything is so much more, in a market like New York, it's so much more magnified. Every pitch is magnified throughout the season compared to a market like Cleveland, where, let's face it, I think Cleveland's always had a good fan base, but as far as, the fans, going to every game, selling out, they had that run in the 90s, but it was also helped by the Browns not being in town. Cleveland's always been a football town, not to take anything away from the Guardians, but in New York, especially with the history of the Yankees, I think you have to be really tough mentally. It's not just about talent when you talk about succeeding there, because even look at Garrett Cole, for example. He was an absolute superstar in Houston. And then he goes to New York, and he's still been effective. He's had quality starts, but not quite the same guy. So I just think it's easier when you're in a smaller, market or a fan base that isn't as well known, isn't gonna hanging on every pitch with bated breath. I just think it's much easier to succeed in markets like Cleveland and Kansas City, but because there's not as much, it's something's not going to be written in the columns every single day.
All right, to steer that conversation and put it back into the local frame. And Richie, you can attest to this because you're close to like the Canfield programs. When you're successful and you have that standard and you have that culture that we've said, it comes with a lot of outside expectations. Like people are expecting Canfield to be great at baseball. When they lose, there's probably a lot of pushback from the boosters, from the Canfield fans, from the parents. Does there come pressure with being at a school or in a program that is so bent on success, especially in the common success? What do you think how that's trickled into the high school realm?
Well, I don't know if it's as much pressure as it is.
I'm not trying to compare it to the Yankees. It's different.
No.
But it's still probably a little bit more pressure to play on, Canfield's baseball team than per se just like a small school like Waterloo.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, there is pressure because, when you look at the Canfield program, there was always pressure for me because I was competing with 3 second basemen, right? So, I mean, there's always pressure to succeed because there's always going to be somebody behind you. And I think that's where great programs are established. It's not just your starting 9 that's phenomenal, but you also have an entire JV squad that could probably compete at the varsity level as well. So I think that's really what makes great programs is your depth and how many guys that you have on your bench and how many guys that are behind you in the depth chart that can do the same job that you can. So there's definitely a lot of pressure at some of these bigger schools. You got to perform a certain way, but there's also expectations off the field as well. And I think that's where the difference is with Canfield athletics. There's an expectation where, if you're not getting a certain grade, you're not going to play. If you're not performing in the weight room, if you're not showing up in summer practices and in conditioning, you're not going to play. And I think that's the difference is, off the field stuff is more magnified than actually on the field, because if you're not showing up to, your weightlifting programs or, your hitting practices, your fielding practices, positional one-on-one stuff, you're not going to play. I mean, that's just how it goes. There weren't too many guys. There'd be about 40, 50 guys that would show up in the summer to work out.
Can you imagine what it's like to play a basketball at Akron, St. Vincent, St. Mary?
Yeah, I mean,
that's just got to be.
I mean, you got to succeed, and I don't know if you're in high school, so you don't feel as much pressure, but for a coach,
you kind of do. Like to the same point, like you have to deal with all the stuff that goes with growing up, like all the stuff that you have to go through from 15 to 18. Plus, you have to deal with, oh my gosh, I'm playing at the same high school that LeBron played at, where we have all this talent. We're traveling to the Staples Center.
Yeah.
We better succeed, right? I mean,
yeah, it's ridiculous that somebody like LeBron, he's always going to be whether it's fair or not, he'll be like the measuring stick for Akron St. B's. That's just insane.
Why can't you be like LeBron?
Yeah.
Well, the same thing with a school like Hoban or per se.
Yeah.
Everyone, in football season, people were saying it's state championship or bust for Akron and Hoban. What happens when you don't kind of measure up to that? And to put a hyper local, you step into Mooney's gym and you look around and all those banners that are in Mooney's gym, it's got to shake you a little bit to be like, man, I'm living up to some really rich history. I better live up to that, right?
Yeah.
Do you guys, because I know as fans, I don't think it does as much, but do you think at all for the players on like a Mooney or a school like you mentioned, a Hoban Anthony or Akron St. V? Do you think sometimes that title or bust approach outlet, that title or bust mentality could at least a little bit, whether you want to admit it or not, as a player, could take away from some of the fun of the regular season?
That's an interesting question, because you ask players like that and they say the right answers, right? They say the right answers, but you never know what they're going through really inside.
Yeah.
When you have everyone telling you this team is so good and it's state championship or bust, right? And then it doesn't work out. Canfield last year, I'm sure they went through that.
Mm-hmm.
With the way they went through that regular season, they were pounding everybody. Everyone was thinking this team's going to state. It's foregone conclusion, and they lose. That had to be a crappy couple of weeks coming from the community and everyone trying to message people. And I'm sure Gary Niddle got a lot of what happened, what went wrong, instead of just praising the season they had.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of pressure, especially when you run into a postseason that you're undefeated, you haven't lost, you haven't really gone through a bumpy road. I mean, you're smoking teams, beating them by 8-9 runs per game, and then you get to that regional semi, and Lane Rhodes, through a outstanding performance of a ball game, he went the complete way in 72 pitches, I think he said. So he shut him down, and it's just one day. I mean, we mentioned that earlier in the show. One bad game and you're gone. And I think that's the difference between a lot of sports. I mean, you look at basketball, you have one bad game, you're gone. Same with football. So all it takes is one day, and that could ruin an entire season. But, I don't think Coach Niddle looked at that game against Salem and said, man, our season is a complete bust because we lost one game to Salem. I think he was really happy with the season that they had. And, they're going to use that as a motivational factor coming into this year. Of course, they want to get back to that same level, but, definitely the year last year was not a bust at all now.
One of the things, because I covered South Range girls basketball this year, and they were coming off last year when they were coming off the run where they went to the regional finals. They returned everybody, like not this season, but last season when they had Izzy as a senior. And Coach Fishel, to try to combat that thing we were talking about where everyone's saying, oh, you better win the regionals this year. You got to enjoy every day as a new day. Like every day, every practice you get is a new opportunity. And you got to kind of take that as a full picture experience and not try to define your season on one game or one outcome or one practice. Like every day is a new day.
Yeah.
And I think coaches that kind of have that mentality, and Gary probably has it too with his Canfield baseball team. If you define your whole season on one day, then you're defining 3 months or 5 months in the basketball season on one day, and you just can't do that. It's gonna kill you.
And you put too much time into it. I mean, it's a full long season for some of these sports, right? You get in the weight room during the summer. You're practicing in the off season. Of course, you have the dead period, but you're still working out. With your friends and your teammates in the off season. And it is heartbreaking. I had that same experience when I was in high school. I mean, we were dominant in the regular season, and we played a Talmadge team in the regional final that beat us, and everybody was kind of shook up by that, and it was devastating. But you look at the season and you're like, man, I mean, we had such a great year, and for all the hard work we put in and all this accomplishment, it hurts the soul that we went down this way. But at the end of the day, it was a great season for us, and we're going to build this going into next year.
Let's tackle this, you guys. From the comments, we have a question that says, do you think baseball, softball, basketball should be best of 3 series in the state championship? And
that's a good question.
It's a loaded question because there's a lot that goes into it. Like in a perfect world, yeah, especially baseball, softball, right? Because it's, like we said, it's such a fickle sport. Your pitcher could miss one pitch, and that could be a home run, and that could be the run of the game, right? Yeah. What do you think, Scotty? Do you think? I know logistically it would be a nightmare, so I think that's why I say in a perfect world.
Yeah.
But logistically, it would, like the OHSA would be like scratching their heads, like, how do we fight 3 games into Rubber Duck Stadium instead of 1?
And the weather you're going to have, like we saw.
Yep.
I mean,
and you got 4 divisions. It's not just one. Yeah. If it was one state championship like Kentucky, which is I think the only state that has just one state championship for high school sports, then you could. But you have 4 state champions that you have to crown.
Yeah,
it would be a logistic nightmare.
It just do you guys like? I don't know if it would be likely, but does it seem like it could be done to you guys?
Oh, see, what I really don't want to see, and this just came into my head, like if they try to force it, they turn it into what super regionals used to be in softball, where if you don't win game 1, you have to win a doubleheader in the next day to win the series.
Yeah, they still do that.
No, I wouldn't want to see that.
Yeah, that's like the regionals in baseball. I mean, you play in that 4-team bracket, right? And then you lose the first game, and you're really behind the 8 ball at that point. But if this was just for the state championship alone, maybe I could see that happening, but not the Final 4 altogether.
You open Pandora's box by doing that, right? So you do it for the state championship, and there's going to be some team that says, "Well, we lost in the regional championship on a fluke play.
So you got.
Why don't we get a series?" So and then it just trickles down.
You got to do it from sectional all the way up to the state championship. And listen, they just don't have the amount of resources for that. I mean, you got to pay people for double the time, and once again, it comes back to money. But at the same time, it would help the game because you might have a team that has one pitcher that's really good, and they carry you the entire way. But you need more than one guy to win you a district championship, a regional championship, and a state championship.
On the flip side, doesn't this make the high school baseball, softball the most fun? The fact that it could any given day, like one day is all it takes for a team that isn't the favorite at all going into the tournament. You look at that South Range team, the one state, they had a losing record going into the
exactly.
I mean, that you could argue that might not happen if they have to win a 3-game series against Coldwater and then the teams they played. It could. But if they have to throw 3 pitchers instead of their 1-2 monster that they did throughout the whole tournament, then that could get hairy.
Exactly. Yeah.
I know not to get too off topic, and I know that our Boston friend isn't his biggest fan, but it's like LeBron said in the past. I related to this in connection with high school baseball and softball. It's like that every game is almost like the two greatest words in sports, Game 7.
That's
and
true.
I really like that about it.
It's like do or die right now.
Yeah.
My best against your best, and it brings strategy. And when you go into a district semi or a regional semi or a state semi, you have to make the decision: do I throw my ace now, or do I save him for a championship? And some coaches have one way of thinking, and some coaches have another way of thinking. I'm personally of the mind that you never take a win for granted. Like you always say, I'm going to win this game, worry about the next one. But there are some coaches that are like, I have a pretty decent 2, and I want to put my best foot forward in a championship, so I'm just going to throw him and save my ace. But then what do you do if you lose that? And you're like, well, you had your best pitcher, and you didn't throw him, and you lost that game. Like, you're going to have egg on your face, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's almost like I remember back when the Pirates had their short window where they were winning all those games and one of the best teams in baseball. And then, it's almost like if the Cubs didn't throw Jake Arrieta when he was, insanely just on. And he recently retired, but it's like, man, you have your – I agree with you, Anthony. I think if you have your best pitcher, you got to worry about today's game. I don't even think you could look a day ahead. But what do you think about that, Richie?
Yeah, I think going back to last year, that was the argument that Gary Niddle had. I mean, he had Landon Beitelschieß and Ryan Petro. I mean, 2 guys that you could both start. Petro pitched the first game against Salem. He went with Landon, and they lost the game, but Landon threw a great game. So, a lot of people were giving him some backlash for that. But listen,
Gary's blessed because he's got 4 aces that he can say, this is my ace today.
Hey, so, I mean, you make that decision. Who do you want to throw against this lineup? Who do you think is going to be better? But I don't know, man. It's just, I always, thought win today, think about tomorrow, because you want to win the game. Because, like you said, if you don't throw your ace and you save him and you lose that game, well, he's sitting at home on the couch.
It's a big risk reward, right?
Yeah.
Because if you get it, then you're going to the championship with your best bullet.
Yeah.
But if you don't, then you're going to have to answer that question. Like, you lost and your best pitcher was not on the mound.
And how much do you trust your second guy? That's the question. I think that's one of the best topics that we could bring up when it comes to postseason softball and baseball play, because there's always an argument, no matter where you're at in the state tournament. There's always 2 guys somewhere in the district that could throw on that night. And it's always the manager's discretion that's probably sitting there at night, probably ripping his hair out saying, man, I could, cost my team this game if I throw this guy or this guy. So maybe we'll have to dive in for a nice little episode sometime and, see what goes into a managerial decision the night before a big postseason game.
And it's much more apparent in baseball when you have the pitch count rules and you can't throw the guy the next game if you do throw him. Because in softball, you can just roll the girl out there the next day, right? Boom, 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 boom. There's no pitch count in softball.
No.
So in baseball, though, you throw your one, you don't have them until the next round, really.
Yeah, I think it's 20 pitches or something like that, and then they're done for a day of rest.
Unless you throw them for an inning,
You could throw them for an inning. So it's like, unless you just go bullpen game.
Right, bullpen game. Can you imagine someone doing that? Like a state semi?
Oh man, it's such a I don't know if you guys have ever
that
played.
Would take some cojones.
I don't know if you guys have ever played chess, but that's when it reminds me of is like a chess game where every move, one mistake could be
trying to figure out. Yeah, trying to do that before the game is like trying to play chess in the dark, where you don't know what the other you can't read what the other person is doing, so you have to kind of just react to every little sound you hear, every little goosebump that you see.
Like battleships,
right? Oh man, Battleship. Scotty brings chess, and Richie's like, I got Battleship. A7, suck your Battleship, loser.
That's great.
What about this? Do you guys like Canal Park for baseball state championships? I think it's awesome.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, they did play at Huntington in Columbus for a long time, and that's one of the best parks in the state. I mean, you could choose from a million of them, right? I mean, you could go to Nick Swisher Field at Ohio State. I mean, you could go to Cleveland, you could go to Cincinnati, you could go to Columbus, you could go to Akron. There's Toledo. There's a million places you could play it. But I mean, for us, I think Akron's perfect because us as broadcasters, we're able to take that 45-minute drive and go cover these teams. You know, we probably still would if it wasn't Cincinnati either way, or Toledo, wherever it may be, but it's a great area for us.
Makes the decision a lot easier. Like if we have to go to a state championship game in Dayton, we're sitting there like, that's a long trip, and it's for basketball, it's for audio only. And
I was just there. It's a long
it's we'd make that decision. We'd do it because that's what we cover our teams through the end of the season. But it would be a lot harder to hit that button to send someone to Dayton than it would to just send them over to Akron. And then you have the softball in Akron too, so it's like boom, boom.
Well, that park's historic, and
you don't.
It'll ever leave there.
You don't touch fire stuff.
Is that your favorite park
for softball? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when it's literally the only softball stadium in the state of Ohio that's like built for professional softball. Professional softball doesn't play there anymore, but it was built to house a professional softball team. And when you think about the people that have stepped on that dirt to pitch, it's like, oh wow, you don't move that. They wanted to turf it, and I was like, please don't.
No,
don't turf that field.
All right, I got a good question for you now that we're on the question topic, and this might pull some heartstrings. What is your favorite softball field out of the two? Georgia Tech, Firestone?
Oh, it's Tech. And I'm sorry, but like when you're sitting behind home at Tech and you have the skyline of Atlanta in the outfield, like even I don't know if you've ever been to their baseball stadium. I know YSU played there.
I didn't go. No,
maybe. I think it was before you were a student, but while I was at YSU, so it wasn't too long ago. YSU went down there, actually took a game from Georgia Tech.
One of them, yeah.
But you watch it and you're like, man, you see the Atlanta skyline in your outfield. It's hard to beat that. But Firestone is a special place.
Now I'll propose this question too. What do you think is the best baseball and softball field in this area?
Baseball, it's Scene, right? I mean, like
outside of Scene, because
like Scene's like a cheat code.
Doesn't
count. Baseball.
It's tough. It
is tough.
Edison's is really nice. I saw.
Well, yeah. See, now you're doing cheat codes again because they got the turf facility, and like I could just be like Louisville.
Yeah.
Fitch. But I think I just went to Springfield, and I like their facility because they have the baseball and then the softball. It's separated by like a path.
Yep.
But they got some nice stands. It gets loud there, and I like Springfield's facility. Obviously, South Range are right next to each other too. I like those ones that have baseball, softball right next to each other that you can just kind of, hey, the softball game's over. Let's just mosey on over to the baseball game and check out the end of that, or vice versa.
Anthony, I know you're like the softball connoisseur.
Connoisseur.
When it
getting French.
Yeah. When did you? I don't know if I've ever. Since we're on topic, I don't think I ever asked you this, so I wanted to now. Like around what age did you start to become, to really follow it and become so passionate about it?
I would say junior year in high school, it was South Range softball started their run. They're still. I mean, they've had a decade of success where they've had a college pitcher in the circle since 2010. But then at the same time, when South Range is doing that, you start to get into softball by watching your own school, but then you look 10 minutes down the road and you have Aaron Gabriel pitching in Poland. And then, you watch her a couple of times in high school and you go, wow, this is softball at the highest level. And then she goes to Tennessee and you go to Tennessee to watch her. And then once you see a sport, I don't care what it is, if you see it at like the highest level it can be played at, and that's like SEC softball and for softball world, you just can't help but fall in love with it, right? So you see the SEC softball, and then one of Aaron's teammates gets drafted by Akron, so I go to Akron to watch that, and that's even the step up, right? Because that's the best of the best going to play in professional. So it's so accessible. I think that's one of the reasons I fell in love with it. Is like you watch the Royals or the Yankees or the Guardians, you're never going to meet those players, or if you do, it's going to be like a, hey, what's up, sign, here you go. But like you get to actually interact with these players at the softball level because it's not huge. Like they have on a good night they had 1,000 people there. So you get to build relationships with the best players on the planet, and that's what made me really fall in love with the sport.
And like you've said before, Anthony, you got some mad when it comes to the friend zone. You build up.
I've got landscaping deals, and I've got realty deals in the friends.
Yeah, you got mad real estate.
Thanks for putting that out in the airways, Scotty. That's real great.
No, I just I know you're laughing. But seriously, I see like a lot of your pictures and interviews over the years. It's awesome that
one of the things that I've
to do the interviews and
build
the relationships.
One of the things that I found so cool is like I've been doing a softball blog in the summer for the last 2 years to fill up my time. I've gotten an interview, and you can find them on ysnlive.com for YSN. Kentucky softball coach like Amanda Scarborough, who calls games for the World Series. Like some of the interviews that I've been able to do because of my relationships in softball, but also because of my interviewing skills that I've gathered through YSN and the avenue that YSN gives me to do a softball blog. It's like sometimes I have to pinch myself that I like when I interviewed Amanda Scarborough, I had to send in stuff to ESPN's PR group so they could approve like that she would end up on our website. So they had to look at YSN and be like, yeah, we're okay with one of our personalities being on YSN. That was like one of those moments I was like, I'm being approved by ESPN PR. Woo!
You didn't contact her individually.
What?
Did you have to go through like?
I contacted her, and then she was like, well, we have to just send emails to our PR guys to make sure that I'm cleared for that. So I had to send a bunch of stuff to ESPN PR.
What did you have to send?
A link to the website, and then I had to, because it was the blog, I had to send a link of one of the blogs to like show like this is what the blog consists of. This is what interviews consist of.
That's legit.
Yeah. So
because I mean, usually like we get like Emily Wilson on and a Gavin Wilms on.
Like that's what's fun. Like when you have to get like if I wanted to get a college any college athlete, you have to go through the SID.
Yeah.
You have to message them, and like even if when we got women's basketball players on during the basketball season, you still had to go through John Vogel and be like, hey, can you set up an interview for us? High school, it's just like, hey, what's up? You want to come on?
No.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask though, college, like, do you have like a dream, like a person that would be like the ultimate, like, just your most interview you think would be a home run for you, like that you haven't got to interview past or present?
I tell you, with the blog, I hit a lot of the people on my wish list.
Okay.
But there is one that I never got, and it's Lauren Chamberlain, who up until a couple of months ago was the home run record leader for career home runs from Oklahoma. Such a big moment for the sport. She's starting a new professional league because the MPF folded. So she's taking that upon herself to start a new professional softball league. Would be an amazing interview. It's one of my ones on my wish list. And then Jocelyn Allo right now. I mean, she is now the home run queen in softball. That'd be a cool interview for sure. I got some things in the works for my next year of softball blogs. Maybe we'll have some fun with some of those players. Every year I get more SID contacts. So I'm like, ooh, I know this idea. I can email him now.
So how much? Well, I guess I should reshape this question. Do you think that a professional softball league would thrive in America?
Yeah, like when you look at how popular the college game is right now, and like the fact that it beats the College World Series in baseball in ratings, right? So
every year
they continue to build up on that softball stadium in Oklahoma, where they have to keep getting more and more stands in there. So you see how much the college game is growing, and it's the same players that you're watching in college that went to the MPF. I think the problem the MPF ran into is that the marketing department was just like, hey, teams do their own marketing. And then the teams had to focus on this interns that came in and tried to run marketing departments because they didn't have the resources to hire a professional marketing team.
Yeah.
So you saw the teams weren't marketed well, and it was just a sense where the USSSA Pride would always get the best players, and it would just be they're winning all the time. Like there was no parity in the league anyway. So I think it can if it's run right. And I could go on about my disagreement with how the MPF was run at the top and my disagreement with some of the decisions that were made. You know, when you ditch teams for, international teams that no one really like. We had at the end of the MPF, we had 2 teams that were full American rosters, and then the others were Chinese rosters, Mexico national team. It's great to grow the game internationally, but it never drew people because who wants to go watch the Chinese national team versus Australia's national team?
Nobody. I mean,
right? So
Little League World Series, that's
right. So it's like it didn't draw people, and making that decision, the Racers losing the Racers franchise, the way the MPF handled that whole situation just kind of left a black scar for them because they kind of did it under the table and they didn't tell anybody it was happening. And then when it did happen, like the public knew about it before they even made a reaction to it. And then Joey Arrieta came out, who ran the Racers, came out with all this stuff that they did that was shady. So, and now like the city of Akron took Firestone away from the Racers Foundation, which, caused another uproar. But I think it absolutely can. If it's run right and if it's marketed right, it's thriving. Like you get the right players. The college game has grown so much. I think it's right there. It's ripe for the picking. We see it in women's soccer. Like women's soccer right now in the professional, probably the biggest professional league of any women's sport. It's more lucrative than the WNBA.
Yeah.
So we see it that there's a clear way to grow professional women's sports, and we're starting to see WNBA bounce back a little bit because they went through a couple of years where it was like, oh man, this is almost unwatchable.
Yeah.
They're starting to bounce back a little bit with the marketing, and now we need to find a revenue for softball. They're doing the Athletes Unlimited thing. I don't know if you guys have seen it, where it's like it's player driven. The players kind of own it. There's no like GMs. There's no it's just all player run. It's kind of interesting, but like I'm always a team guy, so I want to root for a team, and the players are switching teams every week, and there's like an individual point system. It's fun to watch because it's still your best players in the world, but I latch on to teams more than I latch on to players. But they found the niche where they saw the MPF's problem was a lot of people were locking on to players instead of teams. So they said, let's use that and try to grow it that way. So it's cool. I think it can. Long answer short. Absolutely it can. Let's see. We have a question. Favorite historic stadium in the area in the comments. Now, how would you define historic?
Historic. Have you ever been to Pemberton? That's historic.
Yeah, Pemberton is absolutely historic.
My dad used to play college baseball there back in the early 1990s. So I mean, that's definitely historic. I mean, that park. I mean, you could still play a baseball game there. I'm not saying it's in the best of shape, but I mean, it's still playable. So I mean, that would probably be my favorite historic park. I played a lot of small ball games there as a kid. A lot of travel games as well.
So when I blow up my bank account and I make a professional softball team, I'm going to call it the Youngstown Grit just for that. All right. So watch out. In 20 years, I'll start a professional softball team in Youngstown, and I'll build a facility.
Who's your first pick?
My first pick. Right now, like first pick Jocelyn Allen. Like get over here, start playing for me. You hit more home runs than any human should in softball.
Yeah.
So get over here, play for me.
Would you let me at least be on your coaching
Yes.
staff?
Yes, Scotty.
Okay.
Yes, Scotty.
Good. Because I always wanted to be, whether it was high school, I never got the chance to college or like, I always wanted to be in the dugout.
Yeah, we almost let this conversation go way too long. We got like a minute and a half to get out of here.
Yeah.
Richie, thank you so much for coming on today and taking the sidecar. Scotty, thanks as always. Casual Sports Podcast coming up next from 2 to 3. Power Hour from 3 to 4. I'm taking a 22-hour break. Me and Ty will be back tomorrow. We want to thank our guests, Gavin Wilms, Emily Wilson, for coming on today, and Anthony Romo for spending some time with us as well. Have a great evening. Go to ysnlive.com/live to see all the broadcasts that are happening tonight.